Mohit, TNT's poverty line has increased when a headline becomes a weapon. Original reporting by Gail Alexander, enhanced and analyzed by WZYE-TV. On Friday, Minister of the People, Social Development and Family Services Vandana Mohit stood in the House of Representatives and announced one of the most progressive social policy reforms in Trinidad and Tobago's recent history. A comprehensive revision of the standard means test that will expand eligibility for thousands of vulnerable families who were previously excluded from government assistance under outdated 2016 criteria. The Trinidad Guardian's response? A headline that reads, Mohit, TNT's poverty line has increased. Not government expands social safety net. Not more families to qualify for assistance under revised poverty threshold. Not cabinet approves landmark reform to protect vulnerable citizens. Instead, The Guardian chose a headline engineered to suggest that poverty itself has worsened, when the story is about a government actively working to reduce it. This is not journalism. This is editorial manipulation. And it demands examination. Here are 10 reasons why this Guardian article is misleading. 1. The headline implies poverty has worsened. The phrase, poverty line has increased, is technically accurate but deliberately misleading. What increased is the government's official threshold for measuring poverty, meaning more people now qualify for help. The headline makes it sound like more citizens have fallen into poverty. 2. The lead buries the reform. The article opens with the painful reality framing before mentioning the actual policy change. A responsible lead would have led with the reform itself, the fact that thousands of previously excluded families will now receive assistance. 3. No context on why the threshold was outdated. The poverty line had not been updated since 2016, under the PNM government. For nearly a decade, families were assessed using benchmarks that did not account for inflation, the pandemic, or rising costs. The Guardian fails to highlight that this stagnation occurred under PNM governance. 4. The weighted income model is barely explained. The new weighted income contribution model, where the second earner contributes 75% and all others 50%, is a groundbreaking reform that recognizes household dependency realities. The article treats it as a footnote. 5. The internet deduction is dismissed. The introduction of a $316 monthly internet connectivity deduction acknowledges that digital access is now essential for education, employment, and healthcare. This is forward-thinking social policy, yet The Guardian presents it without any editorial recognition of its significance. 6. The $921 eligibility impact is underplayed. For a single-income household, the combined effect of the revised poverty line and internet deduction could result in up to $921.21 in additional disposable income for eligibility purposes. This is life-changing for a vulnerable family, and The Guardian treats it as a closing afterthought. 7. No comparison to regional or international standards. Responsible journalism would have contextualized this reform against regional benchmarks. Many Caribbean nations have not updated their poverty thresholds in over a decade. Trinidad and Tobago is now leading, and The Guardian ignores this entirely. 8. The article uses the minister's own words against her. By quoting Mohit's acknowledgement that life has become more expensive, The Guardian frames the government as admitting failure, when in fact the minister was explaining why the threshold needed updating. The quote is accurate. The framing is dishonest. 9. No expert commentary or independent analysis. A serious news article on poverty policy reform would include economists, social policy analysts, or civil society voices. The Guardian includes none. This is not oversight. It is a choice to present the story without context that would undermine the negative framing. 10. The headline was chosen to damage, not inform. Headlines are editorial decisions. The Guardian could have written a dozen accurate headlines that capture the substance of this reform. They chose the one most likely to generate negative sentiment toward the UNC government. That is not reporting, it is agenda-driven media. WZYE-TV analysis. The Fourth Estate's vendetta. The Trinidad Guardian's coverage of the UNC government under Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar has consistently followed a pattern. Take a positive policy initiative, strip it of context, and present it through a lens designed to suggest failure. This article is a textbook example. Minister Mohit announced that the government is expanding the social safety net, raising the poverty threshold from $1,439 to $2,044 per adult per month so that more vulnerable families qualify for assistance. She announced a weighted income model that reflects actual household realities. She announced an internet connectivity deduction recognizing that digital access is a necessity in 2026. She announced that a single-income household could see up to $921 in additional disposable income for eligibility purposes. And The Guardian ran, "Poverty line has increased. This is not accidental. This is the fourth estate functioning as an opposition organ. When a government raises the minimum wage, responsible media reports it as worker empowerment. When a government expands healthcare access, responsible media reports it as public health progress. But when the UNC government expands the social safety net, The Guardian reports it as poverty getting worse. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago deserve media that informs, not media that manipulates. The revised standard means test taking effect June 1st will directly benefit thousands of families who are invisible under the old system. That is the story. The Guardian chose not to tell it. The bottom line. The UNC government did not increase poverty. It increased the government's ability to identify and assist vulnerable citizens. Raising the poverty threshold is an act of policy reform, not an admission of failure. The Guardian's headline is a masterclass in editorial bias, technically accurate, contextually dishonest, and designed to undermine a government that is doing exactly what citizens demanded, protecting the poor and vulnerable. The Fourth Estate should be holding power accountable. Instead, it is holding progress hostage. WZYE-TV, Caribbean News. No filter. No fear.